Madam President, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. It is my absolute pleasure to introduce you to this distinguished panel on connectivity and energy between Caspian and the Black Seas, Georgia, Central Asia, South Caucasus has always been in the forefront of the transport corridors, and that's millennia. We have been through a Silk Road, one of the key options of the Silk Road, and the goods have always crossed shores of one or few of the countries represented here. I'm absolutely delighted to introduce you to our distinguished panel, in which we have two senior executives of very famous international organizations, a politician, and two senior and well-known technical experts from the region. So it's my pleasure to introduce Ms. Olga Algayarova, who is the Under-Secretary General of the UN and the Executive Secretary of the UN Economic Forum for Europe. And then we have Ms. Atsuko Hiroshi, Deputy Secretary General of the Energy Charter Secretariat. We have on our panel Gulshara Abdul Khalikova, member of the board of Kazakhstan's national oil and gas company Kazmunaygas, and we have Gulmira Zhaeva, Senior Visiting Research Fellow of Oxford Institute for Energy Studies, and last but not least, we have a representative from Turkmenistan, Gulia Kolkova, independent consultant on transport and connectivity issues, and she is currently a fellow at Rumsfeld Foundation. As I have mentioned, Georgia has been on many transport roads for transiting goods from east to west. And east and west connectivity has always been prime from ancient times, and we are in no difference today. And since the independence of former Soviet states, we now mark more than 30 years of large number of connectivity, energy and transport corridor projects being launched and opened. And what has happened, and quite a well-observed fact, is that if transport corridors have been opened for land transport, for pipelines, and for fixed and critical energy infrastructure, we found out that oil has found its way to western as well as to eastern constituencies, parts of the Caspian. However, gas somehow had turned to stay in sort of western parts of Caspian, has managed to export gas to western countries and Western Europe, whereas eastern part of Caspian somehow was destined to hungry eastern markets and China in particular. There were numerous projects in the region that were looking at gas transportation as well, but somehow that never materialized. We had about 30 years on and off, numerous gas projects being launched, but unfortunately none of them had happened. I'm a true believer that if oil finds its own way, and since it can be transported in many other ways, gas needs to be pulled, and gas needs to be pulled by the market. And with this current situation and geopolitics, and with this atrocious war on Ukraine, and the changes it created in transporting goods and services and oil and gas, as it's part of our panel today, it has created a momentum for certain new routes or new projects, as well as reviving some of the old projects that have been heavily halted, mainly by the country that did not favor Caspian resources to be ending up in European market, and that's our northern neighbor, of course. So with this, I would very much like to open the panel for discussion, and I would very much like to ask the panelists to shed a light on major developments within their remits, latest projects and programs that are undergoing, and to really highlight the opportunities and momentums that have been created by this war to facilitate and to enhance and to promote further regional cooperation. Without further ado, I would very much like to pass the floor to Ms. Olga Algaerova. That floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam President, dear panelists, colleagues, dear Madam Moderator, dear Thea, and ladies, and I see also some gentlemen, and we need more male gender champions. It's my pleasure. Thank you for inviting me on behalf of the United Nations Economic Commission of Europe for this Tbilisi Women's International Conference, because it's a great opportunity to discuss topics that we have seen in the morning, and now we continue with our topic of connectivity in the region. And this is exactly what we, as one of the 5 UN Economic Regional Commissions, we are for Europe, UNECE, are doing. So what means Europe in this regard? We are serving 56 member states, and those are the 27 of the EU, the Balkans, Russia, Ukraine, Caucasus, including Georgia, and Central Asia, including US, Canada, Turkey, and Israel. So quite complex region, and here we speak about connectivity, because we typically work on trans-border issues. It means the issues that transbound through the frontiers. So we speak about connectivity in this big pan-European region. So what is the word of today? We have seen COVID-19 disrupted connectivity. We see the war in Ukraine, again, disrupted supply chains. What it means for economies in the region, it means growing prices of food, growing prices of energy. We see additionally financial crisis, debt crisis, inflation growing. We see additionally this triple planetary crisis, what is a climate change, pollution, and biodiversity loss. So all this coupled in this particular moment is not really in favor of connectivity, unfortunately. At the UNECE, we are, when I came back in 2017, I made my mission statement, and it was 3 points: connecting the countries, driving progress, and improving the lives of people. So connecting countries is right today very, very difficult in any regard that we can imagine. If we speak about transport corridors, this is what we are doing for 75 years. We developed and operationalized more than 100 transport corridors in the pan-European region, Euro-Asian region, if we want. If I speak about transport, our mandate is inland transport. It means roads, railways, rivers, because in the UN system we have additional the ICAO for the air transport, and we have International Maritime Organization for maritime transport. But the UNECE is the only UN inland transport body. So exactly this is what we are doing, what is topic of our discussion today. What is it we do? First of all, we have legislative tools, like each of you must know that TIR convention. It is for the trucks, opening the borders for the trucks. So it means the truck is sealed in the country of origin, and it crosses the countries along the region without stopping at the borders, and then is unsealed in the country of destination. So currently we developed digitalized TIR. It means electronic, we call it e-TIR. And we have some pilot projects in some countries. Many countries already joined this e-TIR. What is, of course, today we have a digitalized world, so we need to digitalize our tools. And we have countries like China, India, who joined our ITER convention. Then when you have this tool, whatever is the legislation or norms and standards tool, regulatory tool, then you need to harmonize it across the region. It's very important because we want to connect those landlocked countries that we have in Central Asia, for instance, with the rest of the region. So harmonization across the region. And then each transport corridor, by the way, I bring to your kind attention, we have a publication on, we call it EATL, Euro-Asian Transport Links, and you have more than 100 that we operationalize. And then you need to make this transport corridor sustainable and resilient. Okay, sustainable, what does it mean? We want to decarbonize it, we want to make it energy efficient, we want to make it safe. Regarding the climate change, the Paris Agreement, and all that biodiversity, ecology along those transport corridors. This is a big work, I can tell you. We have our Agenda 2030, you know, so we want, and by the way, our pan-European region, let me go for 2 minutes to that. Just recently, in April this year, we issued our SDG progress report in our pan-European region. And unfortunately, as you know, Agenda 2030 is from 2015 till 2030, so we are exactly on the midway. But the statistics, the result of that progress report was that we are on delivering, we have 17 sustainable development goals and 169 targets. Out of these 169 targets, we are going to deliver only 21. Okay, 79 need to be accelerated and 15 need to be totally reversed. So, and this is the consequence of COVID-19, of the war, of the situation in the region, of the triple planetary crisis. So, we need to accelerate the progress in our region. We need to work better together. So, we have the tools, we have harmonized tools, we made them sustainable, we made them resilient, and then for what do we have transport corridors? For me, connectivity is transport and trade, because the trade is the axis of economic development. So then we have at UNEC, we have, we call this CFACT. It is a center for facilitation of trade. We help many countries to access to the WTO, or now in accession process to the EU, just to make this facilitation, to remove the non-tariff barriers to trade. So we need to make more on trade, because why the trade, digitalization and facilitation is so important? Of course, the goods in the transport corridors cannot move faster than the information about these goods. So we need to be very fast with this information. Okay, then speaking about all of that, and this conference is on women's development. So we have our SDG 5, what is on gender equality and gender empowerment. So how do we see role of women on those transport corridors? Typically, unfortunately, and we have our regional director of UN Women here, Alia, hi. Typically, industries like transport, energy are male industries. I have myself problem in my organization. Our transport and energy division is male dominated. So we need to engage more women on agenda of connectivity, on transport, on trade, on energy, because this is really missing. And especially speaking about that, I speak about young women and girls' education. So maybe I will conclude with, you started to speak about the transport of fossil fuels, about, well, we need to transport grain. Now we have a problem, you know, in Black Sea. So what are the opportunities in this quite miserable situation, right? And the title of this panel is Connectivity of the Caspian and Black Sea. And I know there are some projects already for more years, maybe decade, about so-called Euro-Asian Canal connecting the Caspian and Black Sea. And by the way, if we do it, we connect Azov Sea with Caspian Sea, with Black Sea, and with Mediterranean Sea. So from the point of view of connectivity, it absolutely makes sense to do that. Of course, it's a huge investment. We need to take care that it is sustainable. You know, it considers all these environmental, ecologic, biodiversity issues. And that is, let's do that. Let's improve our connectivity in the region and improve the economic development and well-being of people in the region. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Executive Secretary. As you very rightly said, it's resilience and sustainability, the leitmotifs of all developments we are going to talk about today. And digitalization you mentioned, and if I may ask you very quickly one question here on digitalization and security, that adds on to the Caspian and Black Sea security matters. And what is the UNEC's point of view on resolving the digitalization security along with the transit and transport corridors? Yeah.
Sorry, I just thought can you very short?
So it was, you've mentioned the digitalization in the sector and resilience and security.
Yes.
It adds onto the dimension quite heavily. So what is UNEC's stance on having security added onto already quite complex dimension?
Thank you. Sorry that I didn't really think about your question. Digitalization, I mentioned e-tier. The same we have ECMR, for instance. We have, for instance, for trade digitalization, we have something fantastic, what I love. It is a blockchain-based technology that is like following, or we can see the supply chain from the source till the consumer on the goods. So we call it blockchain transparency and traceability of supply chains. So it's totally blockchain, so it's digitalized. So those are these important things. Well, again, digitalization of generally. Our world started with COVID to be more and more digitalized. So we have artificial intelligence. We are using the machine learning in our statistics, because statistics is also very important around the transport corridors. You need to have statistics, and it is digitalized today. So we use all these innovative tools, but we have, again, one danger here. Include everyone, because in this progressing digitalization, we can create even more divide between men and women, you know, who women mostly work, for instance, don't work, and they are in a household, so they are excluded from this digitalizing progress. Or older people, Europe is aging, Georgia is aging, so older people, we need to allow them the access, and we can create this divide in the countries, between the countries. So, of course, we need to I like these cross-cutting topics, as I'm telling now, just that transport corridors is about transport, trade, energy, food, economic well-being. It's cross-cutting. We cannot, in government, speak that this is Ministry of Transport only. It's Ministry of Transport, Energy, Agriculture. It's cross-cutting. You know, it's about health. It's about, you know, so and this is a challenge, and even digitalized, so wonderful. Additional challenge.
Thank you so much. With this, may I please move on to our next speaker, Deputy Secretary General of the NGCR Secretariat, Ms. Hirose. Floor is yours. And I would assume that we would be discussing about the legal framework that can make all these projects we are talking about a reality. Thank you. Floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Dia. President Durabishvili, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, it is an honor and pleasure for me to be invited to speak at this important event. Today, I would like to speak about the Energy Charter Treaty, how it relates to the theme of this conference, transformation and transition, as well as the topic of our panel, connectivity. And I am glad to have heard the speech of my distinguished co-panelist, because I think some of the points she mentioned, I will be able to pick up during my remarks. The Energy Charter Secretariat, where I serve as the Deputy Secretary General, facilitates and promotes implementation of the Energy Charter Treaty, which established a unique multilateral legal framework for long-term energy cooperation. The treaty's key principles, namely the open and competitive energy markets, investment protection, liberalization, and non-discrimination, aims to address the issue of foreign direct investment and cross-border trade across significant energy producing, transit, and consuming countries. Our treaty has 53 members and 44 observers spanning 6 continents. Georgia has been a founding member of our treaty and continues to be a very important member. I'm also pleased to note my co-panelists today all hail from the countries which are members of the treaty: Slovakia, Kazakhstan, Azerbaijan, and Turkmenistan. I would also like to mention, as a recent development, that Energy Charter Treaty has been going through the process of modernization, the first of its kind multilateral effort to align an international treaty with the goals of the Paris Agreement and its principle of common but differentiated responsibilities. As the theme of today's conference is transformation and transition, and this panel, as I mentioned, emphasizes connectivity, I would like to refer to the energy transition the world is entering into, noting in particular renewable energy and transit and energy security. As you know, the energy supply sector is the largest contributor to the global greenhouse gas emissions. It is considered to constitute more than 2/3 of total emissions, according to International Energy Agency. The 2020 net zero emission goal set by many countries is very ambitious. We just heard that we are missing many of the UN targets, but this Paris Agreement target is also very ambitious to achieve, and we note it's less than 30 years away. And this is where renewable energy sources come into play. They're abundantly available to us, less prone to international geopolitical plays, and moreover, environmentally friendly. More critically, with the rapid decline in the cost of renewable energy technologies, they're particularly attractive options for countries looking to diversify their energy mix and meet growing energy demand while decarbonizing their energy system. There's a great need for private investment in this area, as public and investment and development finance provided by bilateral and multilateral international financial institutions are very important, but by far not be sufficient to meet the tremendous demand for clean energy investment. The acceleration of energy investment in clean sources is indispensable for the achievement of net zero emission target of 2050. For such investment to take place, as our moderator has kindly referred to, a stable and reliable legal framework was crucial for investors, especially to encourage foreign direct investment. This is exactly where Energy Charter Treaty is for, and it comes into play, to accelerate investments by reinforcing trust in the legal system, legal and regulatory framework relating to energy, and to provide investment protection. Again, going to the recent developments, in this context, The Energy Charter Secretariat has developed its flagship publication, the Energy Investment Risk Assessment, known by its acronym ERA, to guide governments in making their legal and regulatory framework resilient and to increase their preparedness for the energy transition by encouraging investments in the clean energy sector. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the government of Georgia, which has been volunteering for the ERA report since its inception. I hope the ERA report will facilitate the government's ongoing efforts to establish a more solid legal framework to mobilize more investment in its energy sector. And as an excellent recent example of our Secretariat's work, together with the World Bank, we completed a joint report entitled Enabling Foreign Direct Investment in Renewable Energy Sector, Reducing Regulatory Risks and Preventing Investor-State Conflicts. Based on the findings of this report, we'll be launching a pilot project in some countries to suggest policy options and institutional measures to prevent conflicts and disputes with investors in the renewable energy sector. Again, in order to mitigate the risk and encouraging foreign investment in that sector. As for transit and energy security, Energy Charters Treaty is the only multilateral treaty dealing at length with the issue of energy transit issues, which is key to energy security. Because energy is an indispensable resource for states' economic development, transit remains a vital economic asset for states involved in this process, such as Georgia. And other countries in Caspian and the Black Sea as well, which are now linked, as mentioned, to European energy markets via developed natural gas and oil infrastructure. I also understand that underwater transmission line from Azerbaijan and Georgia to Europe is being considered, so there will be further connectivity. In turn, the transit and transmission infrastructure can only exist when there are investments in excess, which are facilitated, again, by strong legal framework. I would like to take a moment to mention that I have just been appointed as a Goodwill Ambassador for World Bank's Compact and Forum for SDG 16, which relates to rule of law and access to justice. Prominent lawyers and law societies around the world are working together in the belief that rule of law is indispensable to bring about economic development. To conclude, in order to enable massive investments needed in clean energy, it is necessary to accelerate such investments through a solid and legal framework. The Energy Charter Treaty and the work of the Secretariat will continue to play an important role in this period of energy transition for the goal of net zero emission. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Secretary General. And thank you very much, and congratulations on your Goodwill Ambassadorship.
Oh, thank you. That's very kind.
That will deliver lots of positive results. In the view of timing, we are very, very limited in time. I would like to go straight into the country representatives and introduce to the panel the member of board of Kazmunaygas, as was mentioned, Ms. Gulshara Abdukhalikova, to tell us about Kazakhstan's export routes via Georgia and the expectations from the Georgian government. If I may ask, please do limit your time to 3 minutes if possible. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam President, for inviting me to this forum. The Central Asian region was a crucial section of the Asian Silk Road. For centuries, the East Asia, Central Asia, Caucasus, Eastern Europe route was virtually unused. Interest was rekindled when Traseka was launched and the introduction of the container express trains from the People's Republic of China to Europe, crossing the Eurasian continent, was a major stimulus. The situation has changed with the onset of the Ukrainian issue in February 2022. Ukraine and its immediate surroundings became a conflict zone. Additional routes had been found for all modes of transport. The Trans-Caspian International Transport Route, TITR, middle corridor was inspired by Kazakhstan, Azerbaijan, and Georgia. The route runs through the territories of flowing countries China, Kazakhstan, Azerbaijan, Georgia, with further access to European countries by Turkey or Ukraine, with a total length of about 4,500 kilometers. To date, 4 national railway companies, 2 national shipping companies, 6 ports, operators from Turkey and Ukraine are involved in the TITR infrastructure. In addition, transport companies and the port authorities from China, Poland, and Romania have joined the project. After Turkey completed the construction of the Baku-Tbilisi-Kart Railway and opened the Baku International Sea Trade Port Complex in Alyat, and Kazakhstan put into operation the road component of the ferry complex at the port Kuruk. The attractiveness of the corridor increased significantly. The total annual throughput capacity of the TITR is about 6 MMT. Kazakhstan and Georgia have great potential to expand cooperation in many areas. Rompetrol Georgia is a member of international group KMG International, which entered the Georgian market in 2005. Rompetrol Georgia is known in the Georgian market as a distributor of high-quality fuels and is one of the leading companies supplying Euro 5 products from the Petromedia refinery. Rompetrol Georgia's retail market share is about 20%. Batumi Oil Terminal provides transshipment services for crude oil and petroleum products, including discharge, accumulation, and loading onto tankers to customers from Kazakhstan, Azerbaijan, Turkmenistan, Georgia, and other countries. With a large number of tankers, BOT is able to transship up to 22 types of crude oil and petroleum products. Kazmunaygas and Azerbaijan SOCAR signed an agreement for the transit of 1.5 million tons of Kazakh oil per year via to Aktau, Baku, Ceyhan route. In March 2023, the shipment of Tengiz oil from Aktau to Ceyhan began. In order to respond systematically to the new challenge, it is advisable to elaborate an international transport corridor development concept as soon as possible. It is advisable to establish a special working agency responsible for the implementation of concepts and start the process of organizing the establishment of development and management institutions. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm really sorry to cut your presentation short, but I would very much like to ask next speaker, Gulmira Zhaeva, who is a prominent energy analyst in the region, currently working at Oxford Institute for Energy Studies, to elaborate on middle corridor and downstream petroleum shipments across the region, and be as short as you can practicably be, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will do my best, which is very challenging, but first of all, I would also like to thank Madam President and all the organizers for having me on board. I think this is a very timely and important event because we pretty much, and in the morning as well, covered, well, tragic consequences of the war, but it also has changed a lot the world that we live, and we live now in a completely new paradigm. And when it comes to energy, trade, transportation, it's also a new normals, new business as usual, let's say. In terms of all these projects that the panelists talked about, I think this is the very momentum to take advantage of the situation. Yes, not the best political or geopolitical realm that we are facing now, but there are also always some positive developments, and I think the regional countries. And when I say the regional countries, I mean really the broad region than only Central Asia, Caucasus, or Europe. I mean these projects can start from China and go all the way to the UK. So the region is quite broad, and we have to take this advantage of the situation. The regional countries, we already have an experience of materializing very complex, geopolitically complex, economically complex projects like Baku-Tbilisi-Ceyhan, the Southern Gas Corridor, which is transporting gas from Azerbaijan to Europe, and projects like Middle Corridor is, I would say, something similar to those which have already been materialized by Azerbaijan, Georgia, Turkey, with the tremendous support of Washington and Brussels. So I particularly wanted to mention three major, transportation routes or goods and products and energy, fossil fuels that currently is being underway or is being realized. So it's gas transportation from Turkmenistan to Europe. Yes, many of you would be surprised, but Turkmen gas is flowing to Europe. There is no standalone pipeline like Caspian pipeline. It's been under discussion for many years now, but Turkmen gas is being transported to Azerbaijan via swap operation through Iran, and Azerbaijan is exporting some part of this gas to Turkey and Europe via Georgia. So this is already happening. The second one is oil and oil products export from Kazakhstan, again from the same route to Turkey and Europe, or Westfold. So this is also already happening because after the war, Kazakhstan oil and, as the previous speaker mentioned, oil and oil products has been not safe to transport via Russia, so it has to find other ways to transport its oil, and this is the other way is Baku-Tbilisi-Ceyhan via Azerbaijan, Georgia, and Turkey. And the third one is Middle Corridor, which is kind of a new project, but I think it's a lifeline for Central Asia countries, because we are all, Azerbaijan and Central Asia countries, landlocked countries, and we need transportation arteries to find a way to reach the global markets, regional markets, especially the European markets. And this middle corridor can be a lifeline for mainly Central Asia countries. So in geopolitical terms, I think this country, especially Kazakhstan, needs to find a grand strategy, the balancing between Moscow, Beijing, and the EU, and find a way, and also maybe Ankara, and find a way to smoothly manage this project and start exporting its goods, or being a transit country for Chinese goods and services. So I think all these projects should not be limited to energy only, because Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan, they also can export nuclear fuels via Azerbaijan and Georgia, or Turkmenistan can also export fertilizers, again via the same route, and also some other goods and services. Of course, there are challenges as well, so there needs to be done a lot of work for that, and probably this will take a lot of time to develop undeveloped infrastructure, to eliminate cross-border delays and problems, and many other things, but this will take time. Also, what is happening at the moment is renewable energy transportation, yes, through this corridor. This is also happening at the moment. So Azerbaijan has concluded contracts with some European countries to export solar and wind energy, but in the future it can be also hydrogen. And Central Asia countries can join this project as well. So Georgia here will also play a crucial transit role along the Turkey. So I'll stop here. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Gulmira, for shedding light on many projects. I wish we had more time. You've mentioned hydrogen. That's another huge opportunity, and thank you very much for focusing on the opportunities that has been created by the atrocious war of Russia on Ukraine. Now I know we have run out of time, but I'm still very keen to pass the floor to our Turkmen colleague to talk about new opportunities from Turkmenistan, and to give us one example on what female can do to facilitate to transport corridors and connectivity. Thank you very much indeed, and please do stay short as much as you can.
Hello, hello. Hello. Hello, dear guests and participants. It's good to be last because I have very short time and I have to put all my words in very short sentences. I'll start with saying Turkmenistan had a wisest policy right after the collapse of Soviet Union to gain neutrality status. Neutrality status implies that we don't interfere in wars, we don't support any wars, we're neutral. Just to give a history, Switzerland accepted neutrality status after wars with Napoleon. Austria accepted neutrality status after the Cold War, and Turkmenistan after the World War II, and Turkmenistan after the Cold War. So why do I start with neutrality status? Today's conference, it's very relevant because we're talking about role of women in promoting peace. I live in the country which within the last 30 years, we didn't have any civil rights. I have a 5-year-old son. My major goal is to have my son, when he goes outside, he's safe. There are no bombs, there are no fights, and he's really, really happy. So I'm happy that my country was able to be secure and safe, having all the countries in the region conflicting, Iran, Afghanistan. We had riots in Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan. So neutrality status gave a lot of good role. What country done within the last 30 years? It has heavily invested in transport, in energy sector. It's by improving the highways, improving the seaports, a large, enormous investment in building new airports. Maybe sometimes it could be an expense of the civil rights, human rights, like international organizations are always saying there are not enough human rights in Turkmenistan. But when I look, do I want my human rights or do I want peace in my country? So sometimes you have to balance this too. And now we have the developed energy sector. Not only we have a gas, we're fourth in the world by the resources of natural gas after USA, Qatar. So now we have infrastructure developed. We have the pipeline going to China, pipeline going to Iran, pipeline going to Russia, and now the only missing link, it's a pipeline to Europe. What's happening in Europe because of the conflict between Russia and Ukraine, if you look at the demand side, who is the last person that needs that gas to heat, to have warm house? It's the end users, it's the beneficiaries, it's people. So we need to look whether we have to put our political agendas behind, and we need to have heat and warmth to the families in Europe, to the families in Ukraine, and perhaps this Trans-Caspian pipeline, which has been talked for many years and then stopped for a while, perhaps it's now a momentum to start discussing it. And before coming here, I did some research. I looked into what's going on behind the scenes. For example, Turkmenistan is meeting with politicians in Georgia, separately bilateral meetings with Turkmenistan, with Hungary, and everywhere agenda is transport energy, transport energy. So let's look into these opportunities. You know, I myself personally always look into the challenges, how we can change challenges into opportunities. I have 5 years of working experience in Afghanistan from the period 2007-2012. So I know that the war can be looked into negatively. Yes, it kills the lives, but there was a lot of business development during the war. I was working in investment support agency, a lot of even women opening the companies. And we look at the opportunity, the challenge of the war going on in Ukraine now, and look into what opportunity it creates for women from Central Asia, from Caucasus, from Europe. And if we have to, I usually like to come up with a very tangible, feasible project, and taking this opportunity that all of us are here, I was thinking perhaps in Turkmenistan, Kazakhstan, in Azerbaijan, we have a lot of products made from petrochemicals, from agricultural products, textile products. So maybe we can start selling these products to each other's countries where it's needed, if it's needed in Bulgaria, in Hungary, in Germany. So trade between women, and we have digitalization policy in Turkmenistan as well. So we have state commodity exchange and private companies which are putting everything like in sort of Amazon, local Amazon, connect the Amazons in Turkmenistan with Amazon in Hungary, but to make requirement that the business has to be run only by women. So create a platform, electronic platform where women can trade between each other. Maybe we can call it Amazonian women. If you go back, Amazonian women were very, very strong. And the second, I had an idea, like to this day, I don't think there is an international NGO, non-governmental organization, that can listen to the civil society, that can be a global women-owned, women-run NGO. There is a UN Women, but again, UN is talking for the country's leadership, politics. There is no civil society representation. So maybe we can establish an NGO run by women and have the represented in every country of the world. And then we can have a sector, women in security, women in transport, women in energy, and all other sectors.
Thank you so much. Truly appreciate sticking to those both options, both points I've asked you to talk about, the new opportunity or old, new old of Trans-Caspian. Again, Azerbaijan president not long ago have said that if Turkmenistan will start, they will support. That's a very new development. Hope that will come to materialize. And again, Europe desperately needs it. And Turkmenistan is one of the few countries that can supply it even on the day, and for the women-run initiatives. I very much hope next year's International Women Conference here to launch your initiatives. Both were absolutely fantastic. In view of time, I would very much like to thank you all very much for your insightful presentations, and thank you, Madam President, again for giving us a floor today here. Thank you very much, and bye-bye.
Our next panel will be Women Protecting Cultural Heritage in Conflict Areas.